Hey guys, it's Angelo, and today we're starting off a series of 2 videos where we identify good dungeon and raid setups for Mythic difficulty gameplay. Starting us off will be the dungeon setups, as these will be more relevant upon Legion's launch, as dungeons will play a trivial role anywhere from level 100 to level 110, but will become an almost daily interesting routine during Legion's endgame. It's important that we cover this accordingly. Keep in mind that this video will not include all classes or class setups, so if your favorite class or spec is not included, don't believe that this jeopardizes them in any way. All classes and specs are perfectly playable in Mythic Dungeons, but realistically speaking, some will just be slightly better than others, and we'll be focusing on those I believe will be dominant. I'll start things off with a detailed information on how to set up a good group before presenting you with examples, and explanations of course to those examples of some good setups. That being said, and without any further ado, let's get right into it. What should also be mentioned and kept in mind from you guys is that the footage displayed in the background will not always correlate directly to the topics I discuss at that point in time. There was just no way I would have been able to gather all of the footage of all of these different classes and specs in a perfect way that would have suited the video, which is why you will see me on my Shadow Priest and my Discipline Priest a lot, but of course I'll be discussing a whole variety of classes and specs. Now it goes without saying that obviously every group needs a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. This formula is not variable in dungeons and is essentially set in stone really. What we want to focus on, however, is how to optimize this strict formula to our advantage, and this is doable through taking various factors into consideration. Group utility spells like movement, dispels, avoidances, stealth, etc. Group survivability capability, so the damage reduction, the mitigation and healing, and the damage capabilities, so damage cooldown, damage dynamic, if it's a burst class, if it's a ramp up class, if you have a lot of dots, a lot of cleave, or a lot of single target, you get the idea. A healthy group needs to take these factors into consideration when trying to reach for higher mythic difficulties, so proper partitioning of these aspects is crucial. Let's start off with utility. Having the right utility in your group is always optional per se, but will always help your group immensely. Things like the invisibility abilities of, let's say, a rogue or a mage, movement increasing abilities, or the like can help you skip trash packs, avoid boss abilities easier, or even avoid them completely. When it comes to movement, Shamans have a Wind Rush totem in any specialization, while both Guardian and Feral Druids, for example, have their iconic Stampeding Roar, granting movement speed. These classes may be something your group could be interested in if your classes lack the needed movement capabilities of their own. When it comes to dispels, having dispel abilities on more than just your healer is also of good use. Priests have their mass dispel even in shadow specialization, while DPS shamans still have the cleanse spirit ability, and the retribution paladin can also remove diseases and poisons, just for some examples. The Demon Hunter, as a different example, has a mass avoidance cooldown, called Darkness, which serves as a small survivability increase for the Demon Hunter and his or her group. Altogether, these utility effects help a group push through difficult phases during a trash or boss encounter, and how you use these spells and on what classes should be considered beforehand. Next up we have the group survival capabilities, and those are something your tank and your healer will have to synergize together to the most part, but your DPS will serve as a supporting factor here. When your healer, for example, is more effective on multi-targeted healing and is not the most effective when it comes to single-target healing, you may want to use a tank that does not require much self-healing, but rather external cooldowns or supplementary healing. The DK is a prime example of this, and I have no doubts that most healers will tell you that their DK typically does not require a lot of external healing. Other groups may be better off with single-targeted healers, especially excelling at healing tanks who use damage mitigation rather than straight-up counter-healing. Helpful here are DPS classes that have healing capabilities of their own, so Shadow Priest for example, which will heal themselves with every tick of their Empyric Touch, while also offering their Empyric Embrace a soft healing cooldown to the group. Havoc Demon Hunters, who will spawn soul fragments which will heal them and give them fury if they are picked up, are prime examples here as well. Once in higher Mythic difficulties, your hybrid DPS classes should not shy away from using their single target healing abilities on themselves when things get difficult to ease up the healer's work. Shadow Mend, Flash of Light, or similar healing spells are usable by DPS classes according to them and should always be readily usable. Some healers, like a Discipline Priest for example, don't have hard healing cooldowns like a Tranquility and will have to rely on the initiative of the rest of the group to support themselves in certain phases. Druids, if not spec'd as Restoration, can spec into their Restoration affinity, healing nearby members passively whenever they are at max health, just as another example. The most interesting part for most of you will probably be the damage dynamics of your group. Don't just focus yourself on the best classes on the meters, or on the top classes you see throughout various websites. All classes and all specs have their justification in a group, and some just do different things more effectively than others. It is your job as a group, more specifically as the group leader per se, to identify what will be needed in the different dungeons and to what extent. Some classes are superior at tons of burst AoE damage, like the warrior for example, while others have high single target damage, like the survival hunter or the assassination rogue. Other classes need time to ramp up their damage, like the Shadow Priest. Try maintaining a healthy mixture of specs and strengths when it comes to the damage dynamics. Don't try your luck stacking classes that have high single target damage but no AoE, and vice versa, don't stack classes that have insane multi-target damage but fall behind on single target damage. You get the idea. Now, don't view this as a one-sided sword though. Trash packs in high-level Mythic Plus dungeons need to be considered just as much as bosses, so setting up your DPS classes to suit both aspects is certainly essential. After we've now covered the details of the matter, let's go ahead and have a look at some good group combinations. Comp 1 is a DK tank, a Druid healer, a Fury warrior, a Fire mage, and a Havoc demon hunter. This combination gives you a ton of AoE damage for trash packs, high amounts of burst damage on all 3 DPS classes, and a healthy tank and healer synergy with the DK self-heal, and the Druid's strong group heal. This group is overall well balanced, and the only thing they lack directly is utility. But 4 of these 5 classes in the group can take care of themselves just fine when it comes to movement, and as the DK is the tank, he has somewhat of a leeway and can save himself from movement forcing capabilities relatively well. Another good comp focuses on a Demon Hunter tank, so Vengeance, a Holy Priest as a healer, a Shadow Priest, an Assassination Rogue, and an Enhancement Shaman. The setup has a few differences to the first one. First, this group is focused less on bursty AoE damage and focuses more on boss damage. This factor gets balanced, however, with the Enhancement Shaman's strong AoE, while the Shadow Priest can do incredible cleave damage and high amounts of single target damage, while the Assassination Rogue does incredible amounts of specified single target damage. A Demon Hunter as a tank in Mythic Dungeons is pretty much the best thing most groups can have, as this brings a ton of utility to the raid, in form of a mass silence, a mass grip-like ability, and an overall high survivability from his part, as well as decent damage. Having the Holy Priest to support him is perfect, as Holy Priests do very high amounts of healing currently, both group healing and single target. The last comp we're looking at today is based off of a Warrior tank, so Protection, a Paladin healer, so Holy, an Elemental Shaman, a Boomkin, and a Marksmanship Hunter. This group has some excellent points to it, but, well, also a few flaws, so let me go ahead and explain. The Protection Warrior and Holy Paladin synergize well with one another and actually always have done so. The Elemental Shaman offers insane burst damage while offering movement utility to the group through the Wind Rush totem. The Boomkin offers very flexible damage dynamics in itself and compensates the overall mediocre damage it does with decent cleave abilities, as well as the Solar Beam and the different affinities he or she can use. The Marksmanship Hunter also offers the group movement speed through his or her artifact weapon ability while doing excellent damage and can swap targets seamlessly if necessary. This group's biggest issue, however, is the fact that no melee DPS is present. In raid environments, ranged DPS are typically in favor compared to melees, but in dungeons, this idea shifts completely around. Melee DPS have an easier time dealing with boss mechanics here and don't have to interrupt their damage for movement. Melees also have a shorter cooldown on their interrupt abilities. Now, the Hunter compensates for not having a melee, as he can deal most of his damage while moving, and the Boomkin's long-lasting silence through the Solar Beam also counters the fact that no melee interrupts are in the group. Alright guys, I hope that through all of the information in this video, you were able to get an idea of what to look for when setting up a Mythic Dungeon group. We've covered what's important, what different classes bring to their group, and how you can benefit from a healthy distribution of responsibilities in said group. I apologize if my voice was a bit off at times, as I am a little sick. Nonetheless, I hope this information will set you on the right path for Legion's endgame, and up next in the series, we'll discuss what to keep in mind for a good raiding setup. Thank you very much for watching, and of course for the constant support from you guys. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, and if you want to stay updated on the content of this channel, feel free to subscribe. Now, as always, have a good one, and I will see you all in the next one.